The sharp snap of metal cuffs echoed under the cold fluorescent lights. Layla Brooks stood frozen, her small wrists bleeding where the steel dug into her skin. The officer in front of her smirked. "Call your mother if you think she's special." His voice was rough mocking. Layla swallowed hard. "My mother is Colonel Naomi Pierce, Special Task Force." Laughter erupted from the guards. Then the glass door slid open and a rush of cold air swept in with a woman whose calm authority made the room fall silent. An hour earlier, the Desert Vista Galleria had been quiet. Layla, 17, with neat curls and a T-shirt showing a Mars observatory, was shopping for parts for her solar project. A STEM champion, she looked too simple to be taken seriously. Her focus was deep, unaware that the store manager was watching. Owen Ricks hated poor kids who asked too many questions. "She's not buying anything," he muttered. Then a scream rang out. "My phone. Someone stole my phone." A well-dressed woman turned frantically, eyes landing on Layla. That girl Owen didn't check. "Call the police," he ordered. Layla froze, clutching her bag of parts. "You're mistaken, I hold," her Owen barked. 2 guards grabbed her. Just Procedure 1 said. She was dragged away under curious stares and shoved into a harshly lit security room. Officer Mark Dalton entered, middle-aged, close-cropped hair, black shoes tapping on tile. "What's going on?" "This girl stole a customer's phone," Owen said. Dalton looked her up and down. Name, Layla Brooks. Age, 17. ID. She handed over her wallet. Inside were her ID card, school pass, and STEM scholarship. Dalton sneered. "Scholarship for what?" Scamming Layla's face flushed. "There are cameras. Check 'em." He ignored her, dumping out her bag, circuits, pens, notebooks. A page of solar formulas fell out. He snorted. "Code for your tricks?" Owen smirked. "She hid the phone somewhere." "Cuff her," Dalton said. Cold metal closed around her wrists. "They're too tight," she whispered. "Don't fake it," he replied. "Every thief says that." Her face was pale, but her tone steady. "I want to call my mother." "What is she, a lawyer?" he mocked. "No, she's Colonel Naomi Pierce." The room burst into laughter. "And my dad's the president," Dalton added. "Sit down." Layla bit her lip until she tasted blood. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "When the world doubts you, believe in yourself." She breathed deeply, calm returning. Outside, shoppers whispered, filming through the glass. "Another troublemaker," someone muttered. None knew they were witnessing a storm's beginning. Moments later, the glass door slid open. A gust of cold air swept in. A woman stepped through, not in uniform, but in a white shirt and dark jeans, her stance, straight eyes, sharp as blades. Silence fell. Layla lifted her head, hope flickering in her eyes. Officer Dalton stiffened his throat dry. He didn't know it yet, but nothing in his life would ever be the same. The air thickened. Naomi Pierce closed the door, her voice low and cutting like steel. "Who put handcuffs on my daughter?" No one spoke. Her gaze held not just anger, but the steady control of a soldier who had seen injustice before. The storm had arrived, and this time its fury wouldn't fall on the girl they mocked, but on the men who had dared to laugh. Naomi Pierce stood in the cold, sterile room, her presence alone, silencing everyone. Officer Dalton clasped his hands behind his back, his voice steady but tight. "Ma'am, your daughter is being investigated for theft. We followed protocol." Naomi's gaze was sharp. "What protocol allows you to cuff a minor until she bleeds before confirming evidence?" Her voice was calm, but carried the command of a soldier. Dalton swallowed hard, shrinking under her stare. Layla sat motionless, her wrists red and raw. Naomi knelt, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "Are you hurt? Just sore?" "They said I stole someone's phone." Naomi stood scanning the room. "Then where is it?" Owen Ricks cleared his throat. "The customer claimed it was in her bag, but we haven't found it yet." "So, there's no proof," Naomi said evenly. "Have you checked the security cameras?" Dalton replied. "They've been down all morning." Naomi's tone dropped. "That's not an answer, that's an excuse." The air grew heavy. Tyler Chen, the younger guard, hesitated before speaking. "The cameras aren't down, ma'am. The lights were green all day. Quiet." Chen Dalton snapped, but Naomi had already caught the fear in his eyes. "Then I want to see the footage from 15 minutes before you detained my daughter," she said. Owen stammered. "Only management can access that." Naomi met his gaze. "Then call your manager. My daughter has been detained illegally, and if I don't see the footage, I'll contact mall administration myself." Dalton smirked. "Call whoever you want. We're following the law. Everyone's equal before it, no matter who her mother is." Naomi tilted her head slightly. "Yes, everyone is equal, but justice only exists when you don't trample it." The words cut like a blade. Dalton shifted uneasily. "What are you going to do, call a lawyer?" Naomi pulled out her phone. "No, I'm calling Major David Okoye, JAG Corps. He'll be here in 10 minutes. You might want to prepare your statement." Dalton scoffed. "You're threatening me with rank?" Naomi's eyes were steady. "No. I'm offering you a chance to step back with dignity." Layla looked up, her eyes filled with both fear and pride. Naomi turned to Owen. "Call your head of security. I want all footage from the past 30 minutes. Owen hesitated, glancing at Dalton, who looked as if control were slipping from his hands. Outside, curious bystanders pressed against the glass. "Who was that girl?" someone whispered. "They say her mom's military," another answered. A store employee started live streaming. "Police arrest wrong girl, her mom's really a colonel." 10 minutes later, the door opened and two figures entered in dark suits. "Major David Okoye, JAG Corps," the man introduced. "Captain Julia Torres, Military Police." Dalton turned pale. Okoye displayed his badge. "This case involves the family of a senior officer. From this point, all actions will be recorded." Torres approached Layla, examining her wrists. "Injury from handcuffs," she said quietly. "She needs medical attention." Naomi nodded. Dalton stepped back, his authority evaporating. The room had flipped. Those who accused now stood accused. As Torres began first aid, a ringtone cut through the silence. Everyone turned toward the designer handbag of Sloan Whitmore, the woman who had accused Layla. Her face went white as she fumbled for the phone. The screen lit up, ringing. Naomi stepped closer, her tone calm but cutting. "Is that your phone? The one you claimed my daughter stole?" The room fell silent. Dalton glanced between them, sweat beading on his forehead. Owen froze, while Tyler looked away, hiding a smile. Naomi spoke softly. "Justice doesn't always need defenders. Sometimes it just needs to be seen." Outside, a ripple of applause spread among onlookers. Under the harsh white light, Layla breathed freely, for the first time in nearly an hour. But Naomi knew it wasn't over. The phone was only the spark. Behind it was a system ready to twist truth to protect itself. And as a soldier and a mother, she knew the real battle had just begun. The air in the security room was thick, heavy with fear and shame. Naomi Pierce stood tall in the center, her calm voice cutting through the silence. I want to see the full camera footage, no edits. Owen Ricks looked to Officer Dalton for help, but Dalton was staring at the phone in Sloan Whitmore's hand, the same phone she had accused Layla of stealing. His face turned pale sweat glistening at his temple. Naomi recognized the type men who hid behind authority until real power walked into the room. Tyler Chen, the young security guard, broke the silence. "Ma'am, I can access the backup feed. It's still active. You're not authorized?" Dalton barked, but Naomi nodded. "Do it!" Tyler's fingers flew across the keyboard. On the screen, Layla examined electronic parts while Sloan stood nearby. Frame by frame, Sloan slipped her phone into her own bag, then feigned shock. Tyler paused the video, looking uneasy. "Play it again?" Naomi said evenly from the start. "Until you handcuffed my daughter." The room filled with sounds of shouting metal scraping skin, Layla's pleading voice. When the clip ended, no one spoke. "It must be a mistake," Sloan stammered. "No," Naomi interrupted. "You remember what you did? What you forgot was integrity." Dalton turned sharply. "Why wasn't this camera in the report?" Owen stuttered. "I thought it was broken." Naomi smiled coldly. "Technology lies less than people." Layla looked up. "I just wanted to buy parts for my project." Naomi touched her shoulder gently. "You don't have to explain when you're honest." Then she turned to Dalton. "What do you call what you've done?" "I was doing my job," he said. Naomi stepped closer. "If your job is humiliating the innocent, you've done it perfectly." Major Okoye stepped out to take a call, then returned, his tone crisp. "The Central Station has taken over. Internal Affairs will investigate, and all involved must comply." Dalton froze. "What? I did nothing wrong." "You arrested the daughter of a senior officer," Okoye said. "Every second was recorded. You can remain silent, but don't abuse the right." Sloan suddenly stood trying to leave. Naomi blocked her. "You're not going anywhere until your statement is taken." "I'm the victim." "No," Naomi said. "You're the accuser who lied. And you've ruined yourself with prejudice." Layla sat quietly, her fear giving way to clarity. The same people who mocked her now avoided her gaze. Tyler whispered, Sorry, Layla." "I should have spoken sooner." "You did the right thing," she said softly. Outside, the crowd was swelling. Someone had uploaded the video online, thousands of views in minutes. Captain Julia Torres entered with a data drive and a medical kit. She gently wrapped Layla's wrists, her tone sharp. "A proud officer," she said, glancing at Dalton, hurting a child to prove his authority. Naomi straightened her voice, now firm as command. "Officer Dalton, every word from now on goes on record. If you want to keep your dignity, tell the truth." Dalton glared but stayed silent. Outside, reporters gathered near the glass doors. Naomi turned to Okoye. "Handle the media. I don't want Layla's name dragged through this." "I'll take care of it," he said. "But this story will spread fast." Naomi looked at her daughter. "I know. But this time truth will spread faster than lies." The door opened, and light from the hallway poured in, casting a pale glow on Dalton's defeated face. Naomi placed a hand on Layla's shoulder. "Let's go. There's nothing left here." They walked out into the corridor through cameras and whispering onlookers, the mother standing straight as steel, the daughter bandaged but unbroken, while those who mocked them sank into silence. Outside, the sunset burned red across the sky. Naomi said nothing, but she could feel what was coming. A corrupt officer had fallen, a liar exposed. But behind them, a system still moved, protecting itself. And as the desert wind swept through the fading light, Naomi Pierce, a soldier and a mother, vowed that this time she would be the one to fight and win. The sky over Phoenix glowed dark red like molten steel as Naomi drove away from the mall. The desert wind whipped against the windshield, carrying heat and dust, but her mind felt cold and still. In the back seat, Layla sat quietly, her hands wrapped in white bandages, resting on her lap. She stared out the window, watching the passing billboards like fragments of a broken memory. Inside the car, silence hung heavy. Naomi glanced in the mirror. "Are you okay?" Layla nodded, her voice trembling. "If you hadn't come, they would have taken me. I couldn't have done anything." Naomi took a slow breath. "You did everything right, stayed calm, told the truth, didn't break. That's strength." Pulling over, Naomi called Major Okoye. "What's the status?" His deep voice came through clearly. "The report's at JAG headquarters. Internal Affairs has the footage, but Phoenix PD is calling it a procedural misunderstanding." Naomi's grip tightened on the wheel. Of course, they'll protect their own. After hanging up, she leaned back, eyes closed. Images of battlefields flashed through her mind. Orders followed. Comrades lost. Now she was fighting again, not against enemies, but against prejudice. "Will they be punished?" Mom Layla asked. Naomi opened her eyes, staring ahead. If they don't take responsibility, I'll make them." Later at St. Mary's Hospital, the white lights gleamed harshly. A doctor examined Layla's wrists and frowned. The cuffs were too tight, restricted blood flow. "She's lucky." His tone hardened. Who would do this to a child? "Someone trusted to protect justice," Naomi replied. After the treatment, she sat in the hallway, scrolling through her phone. News headlines were already spreading Phoenix police accused of racial profiling, viral video shows, teen wrongfully detained. The hashtag Justice for Layla was everywhere. A reporter called, but Naomi refused. "We're not giving statements," she said firmly. Justice didn't need pity, it needed truth. That night, back in their small suburban home, Naomi sat before her laptop reading messages from former comrades. Some sent support, others warnings. They'll protect their own. Be careful. She opened an old file, Civic Shield Protocol, a proposal she once wrote to protect military families from civilian injustice. Back then, people laughed. Who needs that in America? But now she did. Near midnight, Captain Julia Torres called. "Colonel, we recovered a backup of the video. Also, Officer Dalton has 3 prior complaints for excessive force, all dismissed." Naomi smiled faintly. Then he's used to impunity. Not anymore. Stepping onto the balcony, she felt the dry desert wind brush her face. Inside, Layla sat reading online comments, thousands of strangers supporting her, but also cruel words. She's faking it. Her mom pulled strings. They always play the victim. Layla blinked away tears. Naomi walked over and rested a hand on her shoulder. "You don't need to prove yourself to people who hate the truth. They only fear seeing their own reflection." "But I'm scared," Layla whispered. "What if they forget and everything stays the same?" Naomi squeezed her shoulder gently. "Then we'll make sure they don't. We'll keep this fire alive, not just for you, but for those who come after. Justice doesn't survive alone. It needs people to fight for it." Layla looked up, seeing her mother in a new light, not just a soldier, but a woman unafraid to face an entire system. "I won't stay silent," she said softly. Naomi nodded, her eyes steady with quiet resolve. She knew that when morning came, their story would no longer belong to them. It would ignite something larger, a reckoning about power bias and courage. As the city lights flickered under the red desert sky, Naomi Pierce made herself a promise she would not let the truth be silenced again. The morning sun poured through the dry desert trees, spilling golden light into Naomi Pierce's home. She had been awake long before dawn, haunted by the image of her daughter's bleeding wrists. In the pale light, she tied her hair, and opened her laptop. The screen flashed with hundreds of alerts, emails from reporters, messages from colleagues, headlines shouting across the nation, wrongful arrest of teen Sparks, national outcry. Layla appeared in the doorway, hair-tousled eyes swollen from a sleepless night. "Mom? Everyone's talking about me." She held up her phone, the viral video playing again and again, millions of views, endless comments, some kind, others cruel. Naomi glanced at it and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't read them all." When the truth rises, liars scream louder. A knock came at the door. Captain Julia Torres and Major David Okoye entered, their faces grave. "Colonel, we have something," Okoye said, placing a thick file on the table, stamped with the Phoenix Police Department seal. Officer Dalton didn't have 3 complaints. He had 9, all marked insufficient evidence because cameras were disabled. Naomi's eyes hardened. He didn't make mistakes, he knew when to lose the feed. Torres added, "His body cam ran until 3 minutes before he reached your daughter. Someone erased the logs manually." Naomi's voice turned cold. Then he turned it off on purpose. "This won't end quietly." Layla glanced at the pages filled with reports. "What will we do, Mom? Sue them?" Naomi nodded. "Not just sue. We'll make them change." Later that morning, Naomi and her legal team entered the mall's headquarters, the same polished halls that had witnessed Layla's humiliation. Manager Owen Ricks waited pale beside the corporation's attorney, a woman in a sleek black suit who began smoothly, "Mrs. Pierce, we deeply regret what happened. It was an unfortunate misunderstanding. We're ready to compensate your family and fund your daughter's education." Naomi's tone was steady. "You think I came here for money?" The lawyer faltered. "No, but perhaps we can settle this peacefully." Naomi stood voice firm as steel. "I served in Afghanistan. I watched soldiers die for this country's honor. They didn't sacrifice so my daughter could be handcuffed in her own homeland. There's nothing peaceful about this." Layla straightened beside her. "I don't want their money," she said clearly. "I want them to stop judging people by their skin." The lawyer hesitated. "If this goes to court, reputations will suffer," Naomi cut in. "Reputation means nothing without truth. If a child must bleed for your apology, your system is already broken." The meeting ended in silence. As they stepped outside, sunlight reflected off the glass doors, catching their silhouettes. People began filming. An elderly Asian woman reached for Layla's hand. "You did well, dear. Don't be afraid." Layla smiled softly, warmth replacing the pain inside her. That afternoon, Naomi met Colonel Hunter at Fort Huachuca. "Naomi, are you sure you want to go this far?" he asked quietly. "The police and the corporation have powerful allies. It could cost your career." "If silence is the price of my career," she replied, "then it's not worth keeping." Hunter sighed. "You're as relentless as ever." "Fine. Civic Shield authorization priority red?" Naomi nodded gratitude, hidden behind determination. As she left his office, she glanced across the training field where young soldiers drilled beneath the blazing sun, their sweat glinting like molten metal. She knew this battle would have no gunfire, but its wounds would cut just deep. That evening, mother and daughter sat together in the glow of their living room. On the TV, the arrest replayed Layla's frightened face, her hands being pulled away. "I don't even recognize that girl," Layla whispered. Naomi squeezed her hand. "They tried to make you small. Tomorrow we'll make them see who you are, strong, proud, unafraid." Outside, the desert wind carried the low hum of distant music. In the quiet house, a soldier and her daughter sat side by side. Between them burned a steady fire, not of anger but of resolve to expose the truth and redefine justice itself. 3 days after the arrest, Phoenix burned hotter than ever, not from the desert sun, but from an invisible fire spreading online called Justice for Layla. Videos, witness accounts, and stories of discrimination had shaken the city. Crowds gathered outside Desert Vista Galleria holding signs that read, "Justice has no color." From her window, Layla watched the growing sea of people. Her once quiet street had become the nation's focus. Seeing her name on their banners, she whispered, "Mom, I don't want them turning this into something viral." Naomi's eyes were steady. No one can turn your pain into a spectacle, but sometimes to change a system, you must face the light head on. The doorbell rang. Major David Okoye entered holding a USB drive. "We recovered all the footage, not just from the store, but the mall's full system. You should see this." On screen, Owen Ricks spoke to 2 guards. "If the customer's a regular, we act. We don't need proof." Naomi shut the laptop. "So it's systemic discrimination." Okoye nodded. "There's more." Dalton and Owen were in a private security chat filled with racist comments, warnings to watch dark-skinned teens. Layla's hands shook. "They saw me as a threat before I even spoke." Naomi placed a hand on her shoulder. "And now they'll answer for it." That afternoon, Naomi met civil rights attorney Erica Duvall. "Mrs. Pierce." Erica said this is no longer personal. "We can launch a federal discrimination case, but they'll fight dirty. They'll smear your names." Naomi's voice was calm. "I've faced men with rifles. I don't fear men with pens and no conscience." Meanwhile, in the mall's corporate office, Owen Ricks sat before a video call with Richard Turner, the regional director. "You've caused a PR disaster," Turner barked. "We're facing boycotts." "Sir, I followed protocol." "What protocol arrests people without proof? What protocol profiles customers by race? Suspend everyone. Fix this before the military and media tear us apart." Owen didn't know a hidden camera had recorded everything. Naomi, with Captain Torres's help, had authorized a legal wire to preserve the evidence. By nightfall, Naomi's home had become a command post. Torres reported the videos passed 10 million views. Civil rights groups are rallying, but trolls are spreading hate and threats. Naomi's tone was sharp. "Alert the FBI. No one threatens my daughter." Across the room, Layla scrolled through news feeds. Old footage played her 12-year-old self beaming beside a solar project. "Mom," she murmured, "I used to think hard work was enough. Now I'm not sure." Naomi's voice softened. "You were right. But sometimes the world must see injustice before it remembers fairness. You're that reminder." That night, Naomi stood by the window, the city lights glinting against her tired face. Her phone rang. General Hunter. "Naomi, the army stands with you, but this will turn political. Some want you silent." Naomi gave a faint laugh. "They've been silent long enough, sir." Morning headlines read, "Officer Dalton suspended pending investigation." His photo appeared beside Naomi and Layla's. The media called her the Iron Mother. Naomi didn't smile. This was only the first step. Justice wasn't in headlines. It was in action. Later that day, Torres reported again. Colonel, we found 5 similar cases in this mall over the past year, all teens of color, all released without apology. Naomi's eyes hardened. Bring them in. Collect their statements. If they try to bury the truth, we'll make sure the world hears it. Outside, the Phoenix sun blazed across the asphalt, reflecting in Naomi's eyes. The real battle was beginning not against soldiers, but against polished suits and empty smiles hiding behind the word procedure. She clenched her fists, whispering to herself, "They picked the wrong woman, and they're about to find out why." The morning air in Phoenix hung thick with desert haze. News of Officer Dalton's suspension had spread everywhere, but instead of calming the storm, public outrage only grew louder. Videos, interviews, and witness accounts surged like crashing waves. Across the city, people began asking the same question: if Layla hadn't been the daughter of Colonel Pierce, would she have ever been vindicated? Naomi stood in the kitchen pouring coffee, her gaze distant. Every news update cut like a blade, reopening wounds and reminding her that justice had only just begun. Layla entered, her hair tied back, eyes shadowed from another sleepless night. "They invited me for a TV interview," she said quietly. Naomi looked up, a mixture of pride and concern in her eyes. "Do you want to?" Layla hesitated, then nodded. "I want them to hear what really happened, not through someone else's version." That afternoon, under the bright studio lights of KPNX, the camera panned slowly across Layla's face. The host, a young woman with warm brown skin, smiled gently, though curiosity flickered in her eyes. "Layla, what was the first thing you felt when they put the handcuffs on you?" Layla took a breath, her voice low but firm. "I felt like I'd disappeared. Every achievement, every effort, everything I'd worked for meant nothing. In their eyes, I was just another suspect." The studio fell silent. The host lowered her gaze, and now Layla gave a faint smile. "Now I know justice doesn't come to you. You have to step out and claim it." The interview aired that evening, reaching millions. Within hours, Layla became a symbol of courage under prejudice. Her words spread everywhere, inspiring some and angering others. But while the public rallied, those in power began plotting to silence the fire. Inside the Phoenix Police Department, a closed meeting took place. On the table lay Dalton's file alongside a new report titled Media Impact Assessment. The deputy chief, a graying man with sharp eyes, slammed his hand down. "Pierce is making us look like fools nationwide. We need to control this before it spreads further." A young officer spoke up. "But sir, the video proved you're naive, Martinez. In politics, truth is flexible." Meanwhile, at Fort Huachuca, Naomi received a call from General Hunter. "Naomi, I have to warn you. Some officials are trying to paint this as anti-police rhetoric. Federal pressure is mounting to cool things down." Naomi let out a tired laugh. "Cool it down? By letting it happen again to someone else's child?" Hunter's tone softened. "I know you won't back down. Just be careful. They won't only fight you with laws." Later that afternoon, civil rights attorney Erica Duvall arrived with her team, laying a thick stack of files on the table. "We found 5 more witnesses, all victims of wrongful treatment at that same mall. One's a Mexican-American student accused of theft, another an Arab teen frisked without consent. None received apologies, just silence." Naomi studied the photos, her jaw tightening. "Then we'll collect every testimony. If the system runs on bias, we'll dismantle it with evidence." As dusk settled, Layla received a message from Tyler Chen, the young security guard. "I have something Mrs. Pierce needs, but we must meet privately." Naomi met him at a small cafe near the bus station. Tyler arrived nervous, clutching a USB drive. This contains the mall's full security backups recordings of management meetings. Owen Ricks was ordered to monitor dark-skinned customers by corporate. Naomi's expression softened. You understand that by giving me this, you're risking your job. And maybe more. Tyler nodded. I know. But I saw how they treated her. I can't stay silent anymore. Naomi accepted the drive, feeling a surge of something deeper than victory responsibility. For the first time, she realized this fight no longer belonged to her alone, but to all those ordinary people brave enough to believe justice was worth the risk. That night, desert winds rose, spinning red dust through the empty streets. Layla sat by the window, moonlight glinting on the white bandages around her wrists. In her notebook, she wrote, "If truth costs peace, I'll still pay it." Because peace built on silence isn't peace at all. Naomi entered quietly, reading over her shoulder. She placed a hand on Layla's hair. Tomorrow we file the official lawsuit. When they stand in court, they'll hear your name not as a victim, but as the one who started change. Outside, streetlights flickered their glow reflected in both their eyes as they looked ahead. In a city still humming with chaos, mother and daughter stood as two small beacons of light. And Naomi knew that light, however fragile, could burn through the darkness that had endured for far too long. As the first light crept over the Camelback Mountains, Naomi Pierce was already awake. Her desk was covered with files marked in bold notes. Evidence, wrong procedure, media statement. Beside them, Layla had fallen asleep over her notebook pen, still resting on the unfinished line. No one should be feared for the color of their skin. Naomi gently covered her with a blanket and looked out toward the glowing desert horizon. Today was the day they would officially file a civil lawsuit against the Phoenix Police Department, Desert Vista Galleria, and the Electromax Corporation. She knew once they did, an entire system of power would rise to crush them. Before leaving, she called Major Okoye. Report. His voice came steady. All data from Tyler has been secured, but Phoenix PD's internal channels are claiming you're using your rank to pressure them. They're rewriting the story. Naomi's eyes hardened. When the powerful feel cornered, they always call truth an attack. Hours later, a new headline spread through the Phoenix Herald, "Military Mother Turns Minor Error into Political Storm." Thousands of comments poured in, half supportive, half cruel. Layla's hands trembled as she read. "They say I only got justice because of you." Naomi placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't let them define you. The weak always call courage arrogance, because it reminds them they once had a spine." By noon, reporters swarmed Erica Duval's law office. Naomi entered in a simple gray suit, calm amid the chaos. Layla followed her bandaged wrist at her side, face pale but eyes fierce. Erica set a thick folder on the table. "We're ready. But once this goes public, they'll hit back media attacks, legal pressure, even personal threats." Naomi nodded. "They can twist words, but they can't erase the truth." People saw a child handcuffed without cause. That image speaks louder than their excuses. Under the scorching sun, cameras focused on the two women. Naomi spoke first, her tone even but powerful. "I'm not speaking as a soldier, but as a mother. A child was arrested without evidence, treated like a criminal because of her appearance. That isn't a mistake, it's a system." The crowd fell silent. Layla stepped forward, voice trembling but firm. "I don't want to be heard because my mother wears a uniform. I want everyone who's been wronged to have the same chance to speak." Applause rippled across the square. Reporters shouted questions, flashbulbs flickered, but Naomi remained steady. Every word she spoke struck at the wall of silence society had long ignored. When the conference ended, Erica rushed over. Electromax just hired a media firm to spin this. They'll claim their staff followed proper security protocol. Naomi gave a faint smile. Let them talk. The more light we shine, the less shadow remains. Later that afternoon, Naomi received a call from an unknown number. A polite male voice said, "Mrs. Pierce, some of us wish to resolve this quietly. If you agree to a private settlement, your military career will remain secure." Naomi's tone chilled. "And if I refuse, then perhaps certain details from your record may surface." She let out a cold laugh. "I have nothing to hide, but men who threaten a colonel rarely live comfortably afterward." That night, Layla watched footage of her mother facing the press. The anchor said Phoenix's Iron Mother is leading a national call for justice. Layla turned to her. "They're calling you a hero." Naomi smiled faintly. "Heroes exist in stories, not in life. Those who tell the truth are hated long before they're understood." Outside, the desert night stretched wide, the city lights flickering in the distance. Naomi stepped onto the balcony, the hot wind brushing through her hair. There was no victory in her eyes, only resolve. Below, small crowds still waved banners for Layla. A gust of wind lifted one high into the dark sky, justice for all. Naomi whispered, "If justice must be fought for inch by inch, then I'll fight for my daughter, for every child after her, and for the belief that truth still matters." Behind her, Layla stood quietly watching her mother framed by the faint city glow. She realized then that the woman who had survived battlefields was still standing in one, no bullets this time, only invisible wounds. And whatever came next, she wouldn't let her mother fight alone. 4 days after the scandal erupted, the air in Phoenix felt thick and electric as if a storm was about to break. Justice for Layla banners still lined the streets, but Naomi Pierce knew powerful hands were already working behind the scenes to bury the movement. At attorney Erica Duvall's office, every news channel echoed the same line: Electromax denies all discrimination claims. The corporation blamed a few low-level employees, calling it individual misconduct. Naomi switched off the TV, her eyes cold. "When the powerful control the story, we change the stage." Erica nodded. Desert Mirror, an independent paper, agreed to publish everything today, Tyler's audio witness statements, and all the evidence. Layla hesitated. "Do you think they'll believe us?" Erica smiled gently. "The truth doesn't need belief, only a voice." Meanwhile, Officer Dalton sat in an interrogation room at Phoenix PD, facing 2 investigators and Major Okoye. "I followed procedure," Dalton snapped. She looked suspicious. Okoye's tone was calm but sharp. "Your procedure is turning off your camera and handcuffing a student without proof." Dalton muttered. She lied. "Her mom isn't a colonel. I just didn't want to be fooled." Okoye leaned forward. "No one fooled you, Dalton. You chose blindness." That afternoon, Naomi and Layla arrived at the Maricopa County Courthouse. Outside, crowds held signs reading "End Racial Profiling." As Naomi entered the courthouse, people applauded, but she didn't smile. Inside, Layla felt her pulse quicken. This was no longer her story alone. It belonged to everyone who had been silenced. In a private meeting, Electromax's lawyer slid a folder across the table. "We'd like to settle generous compensation, a scholarship for Layla, and silence in return." Naomi's stare didn't flinch. "You still think everything has a price?" My daughter's dignity isn't for sale. The man smirked. You'll burn out fighting the system. Naomi's voice was low but fierce. I've marched 12 hours through enemy fire. Fatigue doesn't stop me. Silence does. Later that night, Naomi's home became a command post. Captain Torres connected her laptop. Here, internal Electromax emails ordering security to monitor customers with distinct appearances. And this she added, playing audio is Owen Ricks leading a meeting about deleting camera footage to avoid legal trouble. Naomi's jaw tightened. Send everything to the Justice Department. If they use power to silence truth, we'll let greater power speak. Across town, Owen packed his things, haunted by the image of Naomi's unyielding eyes. He knew she wouldn't stop. The desert night was hot. Layla sat on the porch, writing, "When they tell you to stay quiet, that's when you must speak louder. Because if I stay silent today, someone else will suffer tomorrow." Inside, Naomi's phone rang. General Hunter's voice came through low and tense. "Naomi, you've stirred higher powers. Some don't want a federal investigation. I'm not doing this for them," she said. "I'm doing it because I must." "Then be ready," Hunter warned. "When you strike a system, it strikes back." Naomi looked toward her daughter, moonlight soft on her determined face. "I've fought all my life," she whispered. "But this time I'm fighting for a future where no one's worth is measured by their color." Outside, the desert wind howled, lifting gold dust into the air. Naomi felt it in her bones. The battle was no longer personal. She had once worn her uniform to defend her nation. Now, she was fighting to defend its soul. On the 8th morning after the lawsuit was filed, Phoenix seemed to hold its breath. On every news channel, the faces of Layla Brooks and Colonel Naomi Pierce appeared endlessly. Some headlines praised them as symbols of modern justice, while others sneered, calling it a political storm in disguise. Naomi read them all, her expression unreadable. When the powerful grow afraid, she murmured, they start rewriting the story. That morning, the federal court announced its first public hearing between the plaintiffs Layla Brooks and Naomi Pierce and the defendants, the Phoenix Police Department and Electromax Corporation, would take place the next day. The news spread like fire, drawing national media to Arizona. Layla stood in the living room, clutching the court notice, torn between fear and resolve. "Mom, they'll try to ruin me, won't they?" Naomi turned with a calm smile. "They'll try, but truth is the one weapon they can't defeat." That afternoon, the legal team gathered at attorney Erica Duvall's office. The room smelled of strong coffee papers and USB drives stacked across the table. Erica's voice was firm. "Tomorrow, we're not just proving Layla's innocence. We're exposing the system that allowed this to happen, the quiet policies that keep prejudice alive." Naomi nodded. "We'll speak not with anger, but with evidence, with courage, and with the law." That night, Naomi barely slept. Moonlight brushed her steady face as she sat by the window. Memories of silent nights before battle in Afghanistan returned the same stillness before confrontation. But this time, the enemy wore suits and polite smiles. The next morning, crowds gathered outside the courthouse, journalists, students, civil rights advocates, and ordinary citizens. Banners read, "Justice is not negotiable, and no child should bleed for prejudice." The air pulsed with hope and determination. Layla stepped from the car, her wrist still bandaged. As she and her mother walked through the crowd, silence spread a quiet, reverent respect. A young boy raised a hand in a military salute. Naomi nodded back, while Layla smiled through tears. Inside, the courtroom felt cold and metallic. The defendants were already seated, the silver-haired attorney for the Phoenix Police Department, his eyes sharp with arrogance, and Electro Max's lawyer in a sleek black suit. Dalton sat behind them, tense eyes lowered. Naomi and Layla entered with quiet strength. Judge Maria Cortez, a Mexican-American woman with a calm, powerful voice, opened the hearing. This court will determine whether the defendant's actions violated civil rights and caused physical and emotional harm to the plaintiffs. Erica rose first. Her opening words were sharp and clear. A 17-year-old girl was arrested in public, humiliated, and injured because of bias. There was no evidence, no due process. When she spoke the truth, they laughed. This isn't just Layla's story. It's the story of countless others who were silenced. The defense countered quickly. "Your Honor," said the police attorney smoothly, "this was an unfortunate misunderstanding. Officer Dalton acted on a lawful complaint and followed standard safety procedures. There was no discrimination." Erica smiled faintly. "Then let's look at the evidence." The courtroom lights dimmed as the video played. The crowd watched as Karen Whitmore, the woman who accused Layla, placed her own phone inside her shopping bag. Silence fell. Dalton's jaw tightened, sweat glistening on his forehead. This, Erica said firmly, was not confusion. It was a deliberate distortion of truth. Next, she played an audio recording. Owen Ricks's voice filled the room. "Keep an eye on customers who look out of place. If they don't look like they can afford it, follow them." Murmurs rippled across the courtroom. Judge Cortez nodded for the record to be entered. Naomi took the stand. "I served this country for 20 years, she said, her voice steady. "I believed justice was its foundation. But the day my daughter was arrested, I realized justice doesn't exist on its own. It survives only when someone defends it. If I hadn't arrived that day, Layla would have been another forgotten name in another forgotten file." The courtroom was silent. Even reporters lowered their cameras. Layla sat still, tears streaking down her face, her head high. Judge Cortez ended the hearing. The evidence presented warrants a federal civil rights investigation. The formal trial will begin in 2 weeks. As Naomi and Layla stepped outside, the crowd erupted in applause. Flags waved, the sun glinted off the white bandage on Layla's wrist like a symbol of hope. Naomi stopped before the cameras and spoke clearly, her voice ringing across the plaza. "Justice is not a favor. It's an obligation. And today we've begun to claim it." She took Layla's hand and held it tight. Amid the chants of justice for Layla, Naomi knew the battle had only begun, but this time the whole world was watching. The Phoenix sun blazed over the courthouse, its glare like fire on glass. Inside, the air was cold, but tense. The trial of Brooks versus Phoenix Police Department and Electro Max Corporation had begun. Colonel Naomi Pierce sat upright, calm, yet commanding. Beside her, 17-year-old Layla Brooks wore a white blouse, her wrist still wrapped in white bandages, her face composed but firm. Around them sat people who had once suffered discrimination, watching in silence. Judge Maria Cortez struck her gavel. "This court will determine whether the defendants violated civil rights, used excessive force, and maintained discriminatory policies. Proceed." Attorney Erica Duvall stood, her voice strong. "A 17-year-old girl was arrested because she didn't look like she could afford it. She was handcuffed, humiliated, and bled under a security camera. When she said her mother was a colonel, they laughed. Today we seek justice not only for Layla Brooks, but for everyone silenced by prejudice." The defense rose quickly. "Your Honor, this was an isolated mistake. My clients never ordered discrimination." Erica turned coldly. "Then let's see the evidence." The screen lit up with internal Electromax emails. Monitor high-risk customers, especially young Black or Latino individuals or anyone dressed below store standards. Gasps filled the room. This isn't a mistake, Erica said. It's policy written in bias and protected by silence. Judge Cortez ordered the emails read aloud. Faces on the defense side turned pale. Behind them, store manager Owen Ricks bowed his head in shame. Major David Okoye took the stand. I'm a JAG officer. Officer Dalton disabled his body camera in 3 prior biased arrests. None of those victims were guilty. That's not law enforcement, it's abuse of power. The police attorney shouted. He followed procedure. Naomi rose, her voice cutting through the room. Then your procedure is rotten. The judge called for order but allowed her to speak. Naomi stepped to the stand. I served this country for 20 years believing the uniform stood for honor. But the day my daughter was arrested, she was humiliated by someone wearing that same uniform. When an officer acts with bias, the entire system loses its honor. And when it allows it, we stop being a nation of laws and become a nation of fear. Applause filled the courtroom before the judge struck her gavel. Thank you, Colonel Pierce. That afternoon, Layla took the stand. Her voice trembled, then steadied. I didn't know my mom was coming. I just knew I was handcuffed and everyone looked at me like a criminal. The metal hurt, but worse was the laughter when I said my mom was in the military. That's when I realized truth mattered less than prejudice. She took a breath. I don't want an apology. I want change so no one else feels that pain again. The room erupted in applause, despite the judge's warning. By day's end, Judge Cortez announced, "This court finds sufficient grounds to declare the defendants in violation of civil rights and use of excessive force. Sentencing will be tomorrow. Outside, a sea of people and cameras awaited. Flags waved, voices. Rose justice for Layla." A reporter called Mrs. Pierce. "Do you believe justice will win?" Naomi looked at the sunset, her eyes bright. "It's not justice that wins," she said. "It's those who refuse to give up. And today we proved that." Layla lifted her head, seeing her name on banners, realizing this was no longer her pain alone. It was a movement born from every silenced voice. And tomorrow, when the verdict came, history might finally begin again from the hands that once wore those shackles. The next morning, the Arizona sky burned gold as crowds filled the steps of the federal courthouse in Phoenix. Reporters, students, veterans, and activists held signs high "No More Silence Justice" for Layla and the bias. Layla stepped out of the car, calm and steady, the bandage gone from her wrist, leaving only a faint scar. Beside her, Colonel Naomi Pierce walked with quiet strength. Inside, the marble halls echoed with their footsteps, each one marking the moment they had waited for. Judge Maria Cortez called the court to order sunlight streaming behind her. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, she said this court finds Officer Mark Dalton guilty of violating civil rights using excessive force and unlawfully arresting a minor. He is permanently dismissed and must pay restitution to the plaintiff. A murmur spread through the room as Dalton lowered his head, fists clenched. Karen Whitmore is found guilty of false accusation and obstruction of justice. The judge continued. She is sentenced to 2 years probation community service and must issue a public apology. Cameras flashed as Karen's face went pale. Cortez turned to the defense. Electromax Corporation and Desert Vista Mall are found to have maintained racially biased surveillance policies. They are ordered to pay damages and establish the Layla Brooks Scholarship Fund, a $1 million endowment for minority students in science and law. Applause filled the courtroom. Layla looked at her mother, tears glistening as Naomi squeezed her hand. Judge Cortez spoke once more, her voice steady. Justice is not revenge. It is correction. This verdict cannot erase pain, but it reminds us progress begins when we face our own wounds. Outside, sunlight flooded the courthouse steps. The crowd erupted. Justice for Layla, Colonel Pierce. Truth wins. Naomi raised her hand, then told her daughter, "They're not cheering for us, Layla. They're cheering for justice. That's the real victory." That afternoon, headlines blazed across the nation, historic win in Phoenix discrimination trial. Legal experts called it a turning point for reform, and within days, states began re-examining their security and arrest policies. A week later at Desert Vista Mall, the site of Layla's humiliation, a new community center opened where the old security office once stood. Layla, dressed simply in navy blue, stood at the podium as the desert wind swept through the crowd. "I used to fear this place," she said, her voice calm. "But today I stand here not to relive the past, but to begin something new. My mother taught me that justice isn't something we wait for. It's what we build when we turn pain into purpose." In the audience, Naomi smiled proudly. Major Okoye, Captain Torres, and attorney Erica Duval rose in applause. In that moment, Layla realized she was no longer the girl in handcuffs, but proof that courage can change the system. That evening, mother and daughter sat on their porch, watching the sunset bleed into the desert sky. "Mom," Layla whispered, "I'm still afraid not of them, but that people will forget." Naomi smiled softly. "Truth doesn't need to be remembered as long as you live it. Justice isn't in verdicts, Layla. It's in how we treat others." Layla leaned on her shoulder, the desert wind carrying the scent of dust and sunlight. On her phone, a comment appeared beneath the latest news post. "Layla's story taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but standing tall despite it." Naomi read it and said quietly, "That's what I wanted to leave behind." The desert grew quiet, the wind humming like a distant song. Their story ended not in victory or revenge, but in peace, after a battle fought without weapons, marked by wounds that turned into strength. And if you're hearing this now, ask yourself, if justice doesn't come, will you have the courage to rise and claim it? Because sometimes one act of courage is enough to change the world.